This is the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, helping you to navigate your private practice journey. This is session number 110 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. Hello, folks. I'm Gordon Brewer, and welcome to the podcast. And Happy New Year, by the way. This is the first episode of 2020, which is just hard to believe that we're in a new year already. It's just all gone by so fast. If this is your first time to tune into the podcast, welcome. Glad you're here. Glad you found us. And as I always say, I hope you'll find this information helpful and beneficial to you in your practice or wherever you are in your journey. Do take time to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't done so already, and also go back and listen to some of the older episodes that are there. There's a lot of great content, a lot of great guests in there, a lot of people that you can learn from in those older episodes. And if you're back and are a regular listener, I'm glad you're here, and I'm grateful to you for being part of this journey with me, or being with me on this journey and in this medium of podcasting, which I absolutely love. So it's the start of a new year, and what I thought I would do with this episode is just talk about setting goals and making a plan for the new year. I think it's something that's on our mind. Most of us, when we get to a new year, it's like the time we hit the reset button and really think about that. But one of the things I wanted to share with you is just kind of my process for doing that, and really thinking about how to set goals that are meaningful to you and also attainable. And we're going to be talking about a concept that's been out there a while, and it's nothing really new, and you can Google it, and it's called How to Make SMART Goals, just SMART, which is an acronym for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time specific. And we're going to talk some more about that in this particular episode. You know, as I mentioned, or as I think about this, I don't know that I mentioned it, but as I think about all of this, one of the things that I've done, with it being, we're after the holidays, and those have come to a close, and really start reflecting back on this past year. And I can just say for me personally that 2019 was a tough year. And so I'm looking forward to 2020. I think for those of you that have listened to the podcast this past year, I've kind of shared with folks just some of the ups and downs that I've gone through personally with my wife and her disability, and just the health issues she's had. And then also my dad passed away back at Thanksgiving. And so it was a tough year, to be quite honest, and a challenging year. But despite all of that, I look back at 2019 and feel like it was a successful year as well. I accomplished a lot of my goals, and I am thankful for that. And I've had a lot of success here with the podcast. And for those of you that follow the Practice of Therapy, I'm so glad you're with me on this journey. And so I just want to say that I'm grateful. And I think that's key to making it in life, is we have to practice gratitude and really be positive about things. And so I really feel that, and that's something that's true for me. So I invite you to join me in that journey. One of the things that I prepared for this episode, and just want to make sure you know about it, is I prepared a download. It's just a free PDF that kind of goes along with this episode, and it's just a SMART Goals worksheet that you can download, and you can get to that at practiceoftherapy.com/SMART worksheet. And be sure to download that for yourself. You'll just go in there and on that URL, and it will prompt you to get your name and your email, and it will come magically to your email box, your inbox, by signing up to get that. So anyway, just want to make sure you know about that. So so I'm looking forward to the new year. And like I said, in this episode, we're going to be talking about goal setting and how you can go about doing that, and just some of my thoughts and reflections on being able to do that in a meaningful way. So let's jump into setting some goals and preparing for the new year. There's a quote I love, and it's from the one and only Yogi Berra, and which I just find, he just tickles me to death. I just get a kick out of him. But this particular quote goes like this: if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else. And I think that is so true when we think about goal setting and just thinking about making New Year's resolutions and all of those sort of things. If you don't really know your why, as I like to put it, it makes it difficult to really think about where you want to be. And I think there's a lot of different places to start with that. But, in this profession, I think most of us go into private practice, or just really, and you think about all the helping fields. I know that there are people that listen to the podcast that might not be therapists or counselors, but I have people that I know are like massage therapists or even physical therapists, or really anybody in the helping, chiropractors, that kind of thing. People in the helping fields, that the reason we go into private practice is because, lots of reasons. One being, hopefully for most everybody, is you go into it because it's something that you feel compelled to do. It's something you enjoy doing, something that, at least for me, it's a calling, is the way I like to put it, and that helping people in this way is something I just feel compelled to do. And hopefully that's a big motivator for you in this. If you don't have that, you might want to check and see if there's another profession for you. If you don't really feel compassion for people or have a passion for helping people in that way, I think that's a big motivator for all of us. But the reason we go into private practice, I think, is because most of us want the autonomy and the flexibility that private practice gives us, to be your own boss, if you will. And I know for me, that has been just crucial for me, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast this past year, is to have that flexibility that I needed in order to attend to things that I needed to attend to with my family and my wife and all of that. I couldn't have done with as easily if I had been working for someone. Now, that is not to say that private practice is the thing for everyone and the be-all and end-all for everyone. Private practice isn't for everyone, and I think it takes a certain mindset. It takes a certain kind of drive to be in private practice. And so I pretty well know that most of the people listening to this have that drive, and they have that desire to be their own boss and to really have kind of an entrepreneurial spirit about them, which is some of the qualities it takes in order to be successful in private practice. But in thinking about making a plan for the coming year, the new year always is kind of a marking point, or really kind of a turning point for most of us, is a place where a lot of times we feel like we have the opportunity to truly hit the reset button and start over or start anew with some things. But I think one of the things, the first step that I took in just thinking about making a plan for this new year is really to begin by looking back. One of the things that I've shared with folks on the podcast is just about the planner that I use. It's the Full Focus Planner. Is produced by Michael Hyatt and Company, and there'll be links in the show notes to where you can access that on Amazon. But it's a pretty comprehensive planner that you can use to keep you grounded in what you do day in and day out. And really, the very first section of the planner is to set your annual goals. In other words, write them out. I will let you in on a little secret here. You don't necessarily have to have a planner to do this. Go to the dollar store and get one of those $1 composition books. It works just the same and does the same thing as the planner does. It's just not organized like the planner is. But anyway, that's a side note there. But anyway, and that's how I started with really thinking about my goals setting. But I think having a specific place that you write your goals down. One of the things that I've heard through research, and I guess there's some truth to it, is that you have a 40% greater chance of reaching your goals just by writing them down. And so one of the things I would encourage you to do is to really begin by, in thinking about your goals for the year, really spend some time in just writing some things out. And I'm talking about even writing them out in longhand, because I think when we write them out using just old-fashioned pen and paper, it causes us to think about things differently. Our brain just kind of connects differently with those things, and it causes us to slow down to really process things differently. So I would encourage you to spend some time just thinking about writing down your goals. So my process was I began by reflecting back. And as I mentioned, I used my planner to do that. I went back and looked at the goals that I set for last year and just went through and looked at those and really realized that I met most of those goals early on in the year. In other words, I accomplished them way before I thought I would. But I think the other thing about writing down your goals, you need to go back and look at them throughout the year. And I try to do that at least weekly, is go back and look at my annual goals so I know how to plan my week and move towards those goals throughout the week. One of the things that I wanted to introduce to you in this episode is just this concept called the SMART goals. And that concept, as I mentioned, as an acronym, it's just SMART. And those letters stand for this: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time specific. And this is attributed to a guy by the name of George T. Doran, who wrote an article in Management Review back in the early 80s. 1981 is what my research showed. But anyway, I'd like to delve into these a little bit more and just talk about what are SMART goals and how you can go about creating those for yourself. You know, one of the most important tasks we do as therapists is our documentation. And one of the things that is kind of a frustrating thing for some is creating our session notes and progress notes. One of the things that I came up with was a system called Session Note Helper, and it doesn't replace an electronic health record system like TherapyNotes, but you use it in conjunction with it. And the Session Note Helper is a system that uses Google Forms in conjunction with Google Docs, part of the G Suite tools. And it allows you to create your session notes and progress notes by just going through and clicking off check boxes. And when you get to the end of the form, you hit submit, and it creates a narrative for you. And then you can edit the narrative if you want to. And then the other great thing is that you can cut and paste from that form, from that document, into your electronic health record system. It was just a way that I created to streamline things and make it simpler to write our session notes. So go check that out today. You can go find that at sessionnotehelper.com. That's just sessionnotehelper.com, and take a look at it. It might be something that will be of interest to you and be helpful in your practice. You know, the SMART goals is just simply this. As I mentioned earlier, it's an acronym that represents, these words: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time specific. So let me explain a little more about these. The S, the specific, is just that the goal must state what is to be achieved and have clarity. In other words, when you're setting a goal, it doesn't need to be too ambiguous. So an example of this would be one that's on a lot of people's minds this time of year is to lose weight. Well, if you just set a goal that just says, I'm going to lose weight, that is too ambiguous. That doesn't doesn't really mean a whole lot in terms of being able to measure it, which is the second part of this. So a better goal would be I would like to lose 10 pounds or whatever it might be. So that's one thing. Another one, just thinking about our practices, a goal that a lot of people always have is to get more clients. Well, if you set a goal that just says get more clients, that's not specific enough. You need to be narrow it down to a specific number, which again is measurable, which brings us to the second one, which is, of course, measurable. So a good way to set a specific goal is by having that second part to make it measurable. So a better goal would be, I would like to get 10 new clients a month, or 10 new clients this month, or in the month of January. That is very specific and is attributed to a specific time period as well, which is the last one. But then the third one is attainable. Again, when we set goals, they need to be realistic. If I set a goal to hike to Everest Base Camp by the end of March, that is not an attainable goal. Number one, it's the wrong time of year to do it. Number two, it's not something that I'm physically in shape to do at this point in my life. And also, it would just be impractical as well. So it's not really an attainable goal in that sense. So you really want to make sure that your goals are attainable. In thinking about, like getting more clients, getting 10 new clients in 1 week might not be realistic for some. I mean, certainly if you've got a bang up marketing plan and a way to really bring in those new clients, it could be possible, but for most people, it's probably not realistic or attainable. If you were to get 2 or 3 new clients in a week, that would be attainable. Again, got to think about, is the goal realistic? So the other one is the R in the SMART is relevant. How is this goal going to help you in the long run? In other words, thinking about what are your big goals, your whys, your big overarching goals for your practice and that sort of thing. Is it relevant to that? So for example, the overarching goal the big goal of getting more clients and making it more specific. In other words, 2 to 3 new clients a week or 1 new client per week, whatever. If you set a goal to buy new furniture for your office, that might not be relevant to your goal. Certainly new furniture is going to be nice. It's going to make things more comfortable for your clients, but it's not going to be relevant to that goal of getting new clients. It's going to make your comfort better. It could be kind of indirectly related, but getting new furniture, getting a new computer is not going to necessarily help you get new clients. So again, thinking about the relevancy of a goal. And then finally, the last one of the SMART goals, the fifth one, is just time specific. So a goal is much better if you set a deadline, if you give yourself a place to where there's an end date for that goal. And that will help with the others as well, of being able to think about those things. I'm kind of working a little bit backwards here, but one of the things about setting goals, specific goals particularly, is you really have to think about your why, about why you're in practice, what you want to accomplish. I talked about this a little bit earlier, but one of the things that I think is important to keep on the radar is what kind of lifestyle you want to have as you set your goals. Are these goals that you're setting for this next year going to help produce the kind of lifestyle you want to have for yourself? And I meant to mention that earlier in that part where I was talking about that, but I think that taking your bigger overarching goals, your whys, need to be related. Your SMART goals need to be related to that, if that makes sense. The other thing that I think is helpful in just creating goals for yourself is to really think practically about how you're going to accomplish those goals. What tools are you going to need to reach those goals? I mentioned my planner. The planner is a way to plan. Obviously, it is, as the name suggests. But what are the tools that I need in between all of that to reach the goals that I've set for myself? So the tools might be some sort of software, some sort of automation. It also might be people not that your people are tools, although I've known some people that were tools. You know what I mean? They are resources that you have that you can draw on. One of the things that I know for me this past year, and looking back and reflecting on this past year, one of the big things that I did in my practice was I switched from having 1099s or contractors to having employees. I made that switch. And the reason that I was able to make that switch and really come up with a good plan around that is I did some consulting. I talked with other people about my plan and really kind of ran it by them to get some ideas and also to give me more clarity. So one of the things that I think in setting goals is thinking about how we want to implement those and really getting feedback from others around those goals. The other thing about that's important in terms of setting goals is to be able to somehow or another hold ourselves accountable for following through on those goals. And I think by sharing our goals with others and by talking to others about our goals, it kind of holds our feet to the fire to some degree. We don't want to let other people down. And so I think by sharing our goals, we help hold ourselves accountable. And also, I think it's a good way to get support. So I always encourage people to either think about doing some consulting, either individually or in kind of a group way, like through a mastermind group. And again, those are things that I'm going to have more and more available to people in this coming year. I'm going to be starting a new mastermind group probably in February of really helping people be able to network with other people and getting ideas and that sort of thing. The other tools that I think are real important in reaching your goals is learning how to keep yourself on track. As I mentioned, I use my planner for kind of keeping me on track and keeping me in the right direction. But other tools that I use are things like Google G Suite. I have several spreadsheets where I track things like finances, have things like track the number of phone calls we received, track the number of people that, as we call it, convert from calling us to actually setting an appointment in our practice. And I think the more data we have, the better we're able to measure our goals and really also tweak our goals throughout the year. That's the other thing, too, about setting goals or setting annual goals is you have the ability to change those goals if you need to. Some people might see that as breaking the rules, but I don't. I think we have to at least once a quarter look at our annual goals and think about what do we need to change about those, or how are we on track with those goals or not. So I think having a way to track your goals, to having a way to hold yourself accountable, having a way to measure it all is helpful in helping you achieve those goals. Once you've set your goals, I think the next thing is to break it down into smaller steps. In other words, what are the individual actions that you need to take to reach your goals? So as we talked about with getting more clients or getting more referrals, well, how do you break that down so that it's something that you can measure and something you can do? So as I mentioned, is being able to talk to different doctors or different referral sources and making that initial contact, and maybe setting smaller goals of having a certain number of people that you want to contact in a week or in a day. My friend Allison Pereira over at Abundance Practice, she talked about one time when she first moved to a new town and she started setting up her practice, she set a goal of talking to at least one person per day for 90 days in order to begin to let people know about her practice. That's a pretty ambitious goal, but it's something that she was able to attain and able to do. And it made a huge difference in her practice and being able to build her practice and do that sort of thing. So in thinking about your goals, just think about the small steps it will take to reach that goal. And that will also help you be able to determine what the goal is. The other thing too, and just going back to the attainable part, I think it's important to push ourselves with our goals, to be able to make our goals something that we have to stretch ourselves a little bit with. But at the same time, you don't want to stretch it so much that you're going to set yourself up to fail. So I think being able to talk about that and being able to break it down into smaller pieces is how you do that. You know, another thing that I run into when I'm thinking about setting goals is that I'm always full of new ideas. And I think part of that is because I listen to so many podcasts and learn so many different things. And one of the things about having lots of ideas is that they can be overwhelming, and they can also get us off track. If we jump from one thing to another, we probably won't get too much accomplished. So it's important to stay on track. And going back to what I said earlier about having people that you can bounce ideas off of and you can brainstorm with, and you can also have them hold you accountable, helps with that. The other thing that I like to do, and this is one of the things I started with when I started setting my goals for the year, is I did what I call a brain dump. In other words, all the ideas that I've had throughout the weeks, the last few weeks that I've reflected on this, I just started writing them down. And it didn't mean they don't have to be connected in any way, but I just call it a brain dump. And I just take a page in my notebook and I just start writing them at random down. I think it's even helpful not to write them in right on the lines, right outside the lines. Just kind of go in there and just start like if you had as if you had a whiteboard or whatever. Again, a whiteboard's a great idea to just start writing things down to do that brain dump. Helps you get some ideas and really kind of see how things are connected so that you can really focus in on the goals that you want to attain. I think another thing too is just thinking really long term with your goals. In other words, where do you want to see yourself 5 years from now, 3 years from now, a year from now, and being able to tie those into your annual goals. The other thing about setting goals and breaking them down into small pieces is to maybe look at the time that you have and dividing that up. You know, one system that we have that's kind of a conceptualization kind of thing is to divide things into quarters, into 3-month segments, and to be able to focus on just 3 things during those 3 months. One thing per month. Again, breaking it down that small. One thing is that you'll get much more accomplished, and it'll help you stay focused by doing it in that way. As I mentioned in my planner, one of the things that it has is it's got the daily big 3. And that's just 3 things that I want to accomplish for that day. And those 3 things are usually tied back to my quarterly goals and then also my annual goals. So it's, again, a way to think about it, a way to conceptualize it, and to keep yourself on track. So, so I think that's pretty much it for my ideas on goal setting. And do take time to download that SMART worksheet, the SMART Goals worksheet, and that'll give you a framework to kind of get started in thinking about your goals. And also, I'd love to hear from you and just thinking about your goals. Shoot me a quick email at gordon@personaldevelopment practiceoftherapy.com or go onto the Facebook page and post what your goals are for the year. And that way you can, the other thing about setting goals is if you say them out loud, it really kind of helps. It's like writing it down. It just increases those chances that you're going to accomplish those goals. Well, folks, I hope this has been a helpful episode for you and maybe giving you some ideas about goal setting for the new year and just planning for the new year. And like I said, I'd love to hear from you, to hear how you're coming on your goals, and just be sure to reach out to me. Either shoot me an email at gordon@practiceoftherapy.com or go on to our Facebook page at Practice of Therapy Facebook page, or on Instagram or any of the social media spots that I'm located on: Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. I'm there, and hope to be one of the goals I've set for myself there is to get a little more active on social media. I've been kind of sporadic this past year. But anyway, let me know about your goals. Love to hear from you about that. Also, be sure and check out today's sponsors for the program, TherapyNotes. TherapyNotes.com. They're who I use in my practice, and I'm so glad I've got them as a tool for my practice. I couldn't do without it. They are the number one and leading electronic health record systems for therapists, and they absolutely know what they're doing, and it is an invaluable tool to use in your practice. And if you'll use the coupon code Gordon, just GORDON, at TherapyNotes.com, you can get your first 2 months free by trying them out. So check them out. And also be sure to check out the Session Note Helper. The Session Note Helper is a system that you use with Google G Suite to help you write your progress and session notes much more quickly and help you kind of automate that task more. So go ahead and check that out at practiceoftherapy.com/session note helper. That's it for today, folks. And for this episode, again, Happy New Year. Glad you've joined me for the Practice of Therapy podcast. Do take time to subscribe to the podcast. And I'm so looking forward to having you with me in this journey throughout 2020. Take care, folks. You have been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer. Please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com for more information, resources, and tools to help you in starting, building, and growing your private practice. And if you haven't done so already, please sign up to receive the free private practice startup guide at practiceoftherapy.com. The information in this podcast is intended to be accurate and authoritative concerning the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, or producers are rendering legal, accounting, or clinical advice. If you need a professional, you should find the right person for that.